Hey everybody, Taz from Critical Thinking Anarchist here. So, wanted to talk about this whole. Well, I wasn't going to name him, and I hadn't paid much attention. I saw it all on Twitter, but the whole Kyle Rittenhouse thing and which side everybody's on and all that. And originally, just listening and reading to what people on both sides said, I was more on the side that this kid was a vigilante, taking matters into his own hands, and he shot a couple people, and two of them died, one of them was injured. And it brought me back to a thing a few years ago where people all over social media were claiming, they wanted to go punch Nazis. And I actually got into it pretty good with a couple different friends. And here's one of the posts that I put on there. God damn it, I hate that people are almost making me defend Nazis. First of all, it is not okay to hit someone just because they call himself a Nazi or white supremacist or whatever. As long as that person is being peaceful, you do not get the right to assault someone else. I don't care if that person is the biggest asshole on the planet. In America, we don't do that. There's a whole constitution and everything surrounding this. In short, unless you are defending yourself or someone else, you are the aggressor, the instigator, and making yourself the worst person. Second, and this goes back to an unfortunate event, again, 3 years ago, regarding the woman who died while fighting Nazis. Man, that sounds beautiful, right? The sad reality is she was killed by an American terrorist and had no chance. She wasn't fighting. She had no ability to defend herself. She was murdered in cowardly fashion. Let's call it what it was. Horrible. Deplorable. And the man driving the car deserves no mercy. And this was a guy who drove into a crowd of people and happened to kill a woman. Finally, a friend shared a Martin Luther King Jr. quote that essentially read, "You can't fight hate with more hate. It just multiplies the hate." Again, this is 3 years ago. We are going down a dangerous road here. Everything I see is a fight. People aren't talking anymore. The second someone disagrees with your point of view, they are your enemy and oppose you, and you must fight that person. And I have a little typo here. We need to go back to talking, to discussing our differences and why we have the ideas that we do. One of my favorite quotes is from Kevin Smith, who said, "It's better to have ideas." And this is from Dogma, Chris Rock's, greatest, probably his greatest line. "It's better to have ideas. People live and die over beliefs. Wars are fought over beliefs, but ideas can change." So, can we discuss our differing ideas? Or do we have to fight over different beliefs? Currently, that's what's going on. We're fighting over beliefs. We're not talking ideas. We're barely talking at all. I got into a discussion last night with a person on Facebook, and because I held a different viewpoint, she blocked me. And it wasn't a friend or anything, so what do I care? It's just some stranger over the current school situation. But still, rather than continue a civil discussion, and we weren't insulting each other, at least not yet. I hadn't insulted her, but she decided that apparently it couldn't go civil any further. So she blocked me. So anyway, back to the whole Kyle Rittenhouse situation. Now, I know my previous post there is going to have people up in arms going, well, my grandfather, great-grandfather, whomever fought in World War II, fighting the Nazis. Yes, absolutely. Nazis, actual Nazis, are not a good thing. And that's why there are, they just as recently as a year or two ago, I think, another Nazi person who had fought for the Nazis had actually been charged and tried. But think about it this way. World War II ended 44, 45, right around there. say even the youngest person, the youngest likely person who came up right at the end, even after the armistice was signed and all that, still became a Nazi, still doing whatever, even after the war technically was ended, probably about 15 years old, right? 1945, 15 years old, meaning they were born in 1930. That puts the youngest person at 90 years old right now. And that's stretching. That's going pretty much as far as you can reasonably go. That the youngest person who is still in World War II in some fashion as a Nazi is at least 90 years old right now. At least. More than likely in their mid 90s. I mean, if you figure everyone was around 17, 18, it puts them at 92, 93, give or take. There are pretty much no more Nazis who were actual Nazis in the world right now. Yes, there are descendants of Nazis. Yes, there are whatever was it, the Third Reich, Fourth Reich, whatever it is, there are people who have tried to resurrect Nazi Germany. And some of them can be considered actual Nazis. Most of the people who are called Nazis at this point have nothing to do with Nazi Germany, have nothing to do with Hitler, have nothing to do with the Holocaust, any of that. I'm not saying they're good people, but most of the people who could be considered Nazi in some fashion almost have nothing to do with the actual Nazis. But even if they did, as long as they weren't part of that, legally, there's not much you can do about it as long as they're not hurting anybody. They can talk, they can express themselves. That is their legal right, constitutionally. And I got into a very good discussion with a friend of mine on that Facebook post, and unfortunately he deleted Facebook, so everything we talked about is completely gone. Because he was very much on the side of, I want to go down the street and punch Nazis. And everybody was posting, I want to go down the street and punch Nazis. As if, down the street, Nazis are just lining up the block ready to be punched. 330 million Americans, and you got 30 million Nazis hanging around just going, oh, I'm going to start killing Jews. Oh, Paul, man, I got punched in the face. What the hell happened? Again, most of the people who are called Nazis at this point, they're just dicks. Just call them what they are. Just call them assholes. Call them dicks. Whatever. They're not Nazis. They're just jerks. But anyway, the point of that was, in America, we don't have vigilante justice. Now, yes, every so often, in a couple different places, there are people who actually donned cape and cowl. Who put on a suit and have done some sort of vigilante justice to varying degrees of success. Most of them quit very quickly because they got their ass beat. The couple who have survived did so because they learned from their mistakes. They still got their ass beat, but they learned. They learned from their mistakes. But it also gave them a greater appreciation for law enforcement and what law enforcement goes through and the training they go through and all the things that they do. Now, the reason I bring that up again is the way both sides were making it sound. They're making Kyle Rittenhouse sound like a vigilante. And I was very much on the side of, well, if the kid is a vigilante, then he doesn't have the wherewithal to do this. He doesn't have the training. He doesn't have the experience. The reason why we have a justice system, and granted, the justice system isn't great, but the reason we have a justice system is to prevent vigilante justice, because vigilante justice is incredibly inaccurate. unless you witness it right then and there and you take action on your own, you don't have the wherewithal, again, to do this properly, to go after the right people, to make sure the right people get punished. And is it really the right punishment most of the time? Because if you're talking vigilante justice, chances are it means people are getting beat, means people are getting killed. And again, I'm not saying people don't deserve to get beat. I'm not saying people don't deserve to get killed, but the regular average Joe, the regular average Jill, is not the one that should be doling out that punishment. However, and taking a little time and researching this story, and again, this is why I've chosen to go ahead and mention his name, is that yes, he is a minor, legally speaking. He probably shouldn't have been in Kenosha. I don't know if his parents were with him or not, or if he was there with a group of other people. But as he was under 18, he probably shouldn't have been there. Now, whether he's legal to carry an AR-15 or not, I don't know. I don't believe so, but I haven't researched that part of the aspect. But I mean, that's kind of minor stuff. He can be charged for all that stuff then, and I don't care if he gets charged with any of that. But again, the vigilante part that both sides made it seem like was the part that I was sitting there going, a 17-year-old should never be a vigilante. But what actually happened was far different than what people are saying. And on the National Review, Robert Verbruggen, I hope I'm saying that correctly, did a really good job of kind of summing up what all was going on here. So, between him and he points to the New York Times, which New York Times, they actually, it's an okay job, but it really isn't that great, but they actually did a decent job of kind of pointing out sort of what happened to a point. So like this would be the first shooting, and then unfortunately there's no video of the first shooting. There's a gun flash, a handgun muzzle flash, a guy jumping out towards Rittenhouse, who happens to be one of the sex offenders, I believe, and Rittenhouse standing there, just he wasn't trying to provoke anything as far as anyone could tell. So, as it says here in the timeline, according to the New York Times, while Mr. Rittenhouse is being pursued by the group, so he was being pursued by the group of people in Kenosha. An unknown gunman fires into the air. Though it's unclear why, the weapon's muzzle flash appears in footage filmed at the scene. Mr. Rittenhouse turns toward the sound of the gunfire. So, gunfire here, Rittenhouse. So he turns around and go, "What the hell?" As another pursuer lunges towards him from the same direction. So, of course, he sees this guy is going, "Oh shit." Mr. Rittenhouse then fires 4 times and appears to shoot the man in the head. Well, again, whether you believe, again, I'm not entirely sure what Wisconsin's laws are regarding this. And again, and I'm sorry I keep saying again 1,800 times. They do a pretty okay job of kind of getting to that in here to a point. He does have the right to defend himself. And if he feels, someone, let's face it, you're out in a tense situation. You're in a tense situation. You put yourself in that situation, though. And they did put themselves into that situation, but everybody was in that same situation in that place. So, does he have a legal right? I would say so. I would say he does. He has a right to defend himself. The person who lunges at him is aware he has a gun. He was open carrying. It's AR-15. It's a long rifle. So he's open carrying, and the man knows he has a gun. And he decided to try and attack him anyway. He tried to blindside him and Rittenhouse was pretty much saved by the handgun firing. Because he probably wouldn't have known that a guy was about to jump him. Who knows what would have happened in that particular case. So he shoots the man in the head. The second shooting, they say after that happens, Mr. Rittenhouse seems to make a phone call and then flees the scene. Several people chase him, shouting, "That's the shooter, that's the shooter." As Mr. Rittenhouse is running, he trips and falls to the ground. He fires 4 shots as 3 people rush toward him. One person appears to be hit in the chest and falls to the ground. Another, who is carrying a handgun, is hit in the arm and runs away. Mr. Rittenhouse's gunfire is mixed in with the sound of at least 16 other gunshots that ring out during that time. Now, I'll play this here. So we got this going on, and again, this does have graphics on it. So if you don't want to see this, skip ahead 30 seconds. And here we go. So we see Kyle, and they circle him for everybody. He's being chased. And he tries to get away. Tries to get away a second time. He's still doing pretty good. He's still standing. And here he's tripping. So he trips, falls on the ground. A guy realizes that he's about to raise his gun. So this guy here realizes that Kyle's about to raise his gun. This guy doesn't give a shit. So as I play again here, watch this. Bam, 1, oh, and then he gets nailed. So, if you watch, he does kind of like a jump kick type of thing. Now this first guy got hit. Now I'm not sure which one he is. But he did get hit. Because you kind of heard that. Oh no, I may have wrong. I apologize. And that guy tries to take his gun, but of course he's got a strap on it. Oh no, that's the skateboard. Yeah. But he does try to take the gun. So, and they're all sitting there like, "Oh, he shot people, and he's, and then he walks calmly towards the police. And of course the police, they're trying to, people are trying to scream out, and police are in, these freaking armored vehicles. They're not out, they can barely hear. If you've ever been in one of those things, you can barely hear anything going on outside. I mean, you have to be pretty loud, and you got these people shouting from the sides of the street. Trust me, they can't hear a fucking thing. And so Kyle walks towards, trying to give himself up. He knows he's part of this. He tries to give himself up. The police pass him because there are victims. Granted, they are Kyle's victims, but they are victims nonetheless. It's not like the police are sitting there going, "Yeah, go ahead, kid." And again, this was the narrative that people are saying. "Yeah, go ahead, kid. Just go on past. Go on. We don't care about you. We got other shit to deal with." No. That's not what happened. What happened was he tried to give himself up. The cops are like, "Get out of the road. We need to get by to get to these victims. Get out of the road." They keep shouting, "Get out of the road. Get out of the road. Get out of the road." And they honk at him. And he gets out of the road. And he continues to try to give himself up to somebody. And they just tell him, "Get out of the road." They don't care. Because they have victims. Again, they weren't giving him a free pass. That's not what happened. They wanted to get to the people who were been shot. So, and then the other question that comes on is, so did he provoke it, or was it self-defense? Who knows? I mean, that's going to be what the trial is all about. If he provoked it, and, if there's footage out there showing that he provoked it, then he should definitely be charged. However, from everything objectively that it looks like, he was in a bad place. He shouldn't have been in a bad place. But being in that bad place he has a right to defend himself, especially against multiple attackers. I don't care, I don't know what a jury would say, but personally, in my eyes, when you've got a mob of people, it doesn't matter. Chances are they're going to kill you. We've seen it in other places. Unarmed, defenseless people being straight up murdered. People trying to defend their businesses from these rioters, from these terrorists, and they're straight up murdered. Just because they didn't want their place burned down. They didn't want their place looted. They weren't shooting anybody. They weren't taking baseball bats to anybody. They were literally sitting there going, please, please don't, and trying to keep people away. And they were thrown into the street, dragged around, beaten the hell out of, and left to die. So in this particular case, if that's the case, yes, Kyle had every right to defend himself the way he did, with extreme prejudice. And everything it looks like in these videos looks like he did that. He made every attempt to get away, and when he couldn't get away, he used his gun as a last resort. But again, I don't know what a jury will see. We don't know if there's more video evidence out there that can change the narrative one way or another. So, hopefully, this gave you a better perspective on what happened out there. Like I said, originally I had planned on saying he was a vigilante and he shouldn't be lauded. However, again and again and again, I'm saying this again another 1,800 times. Again, he should never have been there. Never have been there. 17 years old, should never have been in that situation. But since he was in that situation, he had every right to defend himself if he was simply defending himself and not provoking the attacks. He had every right to defend himself the way he did. Anyway, I hope you guys found this informative. I hope it shed some light on the subject that you may not have had before, that people before me hadn't given you. That it gave you a better overview of how to look at the situation. Anyway, if you liked the video, please hit the like button, please hit the subscribe button, share the video so that others can see, again, an objective viewpoint. I didn't go in this sitting there going, this kid is guilty as hell and he should be tried. Or the other way. I was prepared to do that. Or the other way, I didn't sit there going, oh man, this kid was clearly defending himself. Clearly, what was going, why would anyone see anything differently? But taking an objective look at it, it's tough to say he had another choice since he was there already. You guys take care. I'll talk to you in the next one.